Here we go. We're live. Hello, everyone. Thank you, and welcome to the Kansas African American Affairs Commission's weekly Lunch and Learn. My name is Stacy Nell. I'm the Executive Director of the African American Affairs Commission. I am thrilled to be joined today by Dr. Kaye Monk-Morgan, whose accolades and list of achievements are very long and impressive, and I love that she's here. Hello.
Hi, Stacey. Thanks so much for having me. It's so good to be here with you.
Definitely. We just saw each other just this past weekend. I was at an event in Wichita that you were the first keynote speaker for, yes?
Yeah, I had a really good opportunity to go over to the Know Your Worth conference that several women here in Wichita have been, I want to say it's year 4 or 5, maybe even 7 that they've been sponsoring. So good opportunity to engage with women, get kind of rah, and then go back out and do really good work.
Gotta love rah. Gotta love rah. Well, I will read your short bio here, just in case there are people who don't know who you are, but in case there are people who don't know who you are, Dr. Kaye Monk-Morgan is a third-generation Kansan and is currently the president and CEO of the Kansas Leadership Center. It's an internationally recognized center for excellence for leadership development and civic engagement. She previously served as KLC's inaugural Chief Impact Officer. Her work fosters civic leadership for stronger, healthier, and more prosperous communities in Kansas and beyond. Prior to her time at KLC, Monk-Morgan dedicated her talents to higher education. For over 30 years, she served in roles ranging from residence hall director to assistant dean of Fairmont College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and ultimately as the vice president for strategic engagement and planning. Her areas of responsibility varied over the years and included community and economic development, strategic planning, assessment and accreditation, and coordination of Wichita State University's first-generation student services. Monk-Morgan has served on nonprofit and corporate boards, got it out, at local, state, and regional national levels. And while all this is important, what really counts to Monk-Morgan is that she's a teacher, student, mentor, mentee, daughter, sister, aunt, wife, and most importantly, a mother. And I'm going to say all of that because it's so important. Yes. She's a lifelong learner, aspiring yogi, I may get to that later, a wannabe long distance runner, and a tried and true girlfriend living in Wichita, Kansas, currently with her husband and 2 adult sons in the Wichita area as well.
Yes.
So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have fun.
My first question to everyone is always, what are you having for lunch?
You know what? I just door-dashed Panera. And so when we get off, hopefully I'll have a salad with some chicken salad to go with it.
There you go. Yeah, I just had like a microwave meal because
Oh, that's smart.
I don't know. Is it though?
It means you had to. You were thinking about it beforehand, and I started thinking about it about 20 minutes ago.
To each their own. No judgments. No judgments. There have been plenty of days when I've been over at the Capitol's cafeteria, like, let me just get something to eat. So
right. What's left?
What's left? Exactly. So now, I have known you for a couple of years.
Yes.
Just through various organizations and various things that have been going around Kansas. But congratulations on just very recently being named as the president and CEO of the Kansas Leadership Center. So I specifically wanted to bring you on so you could talk about that. I wanted to back up just a little bit and talk about Chief Impact Officer and how you got involved with KLC. And then we'll talk about your current role and moving into the future. So backing up to Chief Impact Officer, how did you come to work with KLC and what did that work entail?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I've been tangentially associated with KLC for about 5 years, serving on their faculty, doing leadership development and training, facilitation type workshops all over the place, both in Kansas and outside of the state for a while. And the then president and CEO, Ed O'Malley, and I, great friends, had a conversation one day in a parking lot. Where he started talking and thinking about, or sharing with me really, his vision for KLC's growth and the need for what he would call KLC 5.0. And part of that was stronger internal systems. We have fantastic programs and services, great impact that's being had, and a desire to do an even better job of creating internal systems where we could better tell the story of what KLC is doing, not just in the state of Kansas, because we have partners all over the world. How do we have a global impact? And so Given that I have a degree in educational leadership, I've done some studies on how you demonstrate impact, what types of things you might want to measure, what types of benefits or changes could be made in a system that would amplify that impact. And so after a couple of months of back and forth, he convinced me that it would be a really cool opportunity to come over and help him build something wild and crazy.
Yeah.
And so I said, yes.
Did he say, let's do some experiments?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've had some conversations with Ed and he's like, it would be a good experiment. And I'm like, come on now, Ed. All right, talk your language.
Yeah. Except my career can't be an experiment.
Understand.
The work that we do could be an experiment.
Yes.
And so that's what it was. It was, let's figure out, let's play, let's spend some time really digging deep. KLC is born out of conversations with Kansans, everyday folks like you and I. The ideas that we advance aren't necessarily things that come from a theoretical framework or from an academic background. There are academic things that touch, and it makes sense in that regard. But it didn't start that way. Mm-hmm. And so now going back to say, we've got this thing, we've got thousands of people that we've trained. Mm-hmm. What do we know is happening? Is our state better off? And in the places it is, what can be attributed to KLC? And in the places that it isn't, what can be contributed to KLC?
Right. Okay. So that was your work with the Chief Impact Officer to find.
Yeah.
What did you find?
Well, we started doing a lot of different things. I shouldn't say always, for the last 4 to 5 years, we've had the Third Floor Research Center, a set of faculty members who are actually housed at K-State in their Staley School, but do lots of legitimate academic research with any number of our partners looking at outcomes. And we know that for organizations who reach saturation, 25 to 28% of their people come through KLC. We know that their organization starts to function different. We know that people exercise leadership in a different way. And we've got really good data that says that. We know that stuff happens. Individuals report systemic personal change and how they deploy themselves. We've got really good data on that. We're starting now to look at data. So we look at it from a stance of 4 levels of impact. We know that there's impact that's being had at the individual level. We know that there's impact that's being had within a closed system. We're really interested in now identifying what does it look like in an open system around an issue, whether that issue is homelessness or hunger or education. And so looking at our partners who do work in that space, we're starting to gather data and get some synergies around that.
Okay. So that was your work as a Chief Impact Officer. And then at some point, I'm not sure who approached you and said, we want you to be CEO. So now you're CEO, president, you're steering the ship.
I am. And it's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Ed made the wise choice, I think, to follow another dream of his and to go over to the Kansas Health Foundation, which is one of our largest funders and supporters. Which left a void, an opportunity here within our team to either elevate or bring someone in to help continue the evolution of the Kansas Leadership Center. And I was really fortunate in that application process to end up the person that the team and the board agreed would be good to help us continue to move forward. And so really excited about that work. That wasn't what I came over to do. That wasn't the plan. But, I found anytime I have a plan, God shows me something that's very different.
That's how I wound up here.
Yes.
If you told me 3 years ago, this is where I would have been, I'd been like, nope, but here we are. So now that you are at the helm at the Kansas Leadership Center, maybe we should even broadly, if people are not familiar with the Kansas Leadership Center, I don't want to take for granted, how much people may know. So what is the vision or what is the mission statement of the Kansas Leadership Center? And then how do you see yourself either furthering it or how do you see yourself steering it into the future?
Yeah. Our overall mission, Stacey, and you read a bit of it, is literally to strengthen the state of Kansas, the opportunity for people to deploy themselves so that our state is stronger, that it's healthier and it's more prosperous. And we've expanded that mission to within Kansas and beyond, given some of the partners that we work with. And really, it's around social determinants of health. We believe that if we can help people access leadership from a different vantage point, a different point of view, that they will deploy themselves differently. And oftentimes folks come into KLC as a result of their employment. But we also know that those folks that are employed and coming through our trainings are Girl Scout leaders, or PTO folks, or folks who serve on their local school boards. And so ultimately, it's about civic leadership development. We want folks to be civically engaged along the continuum of what civic engagement looks like. Everything from the PTO mom who's baking brownies and making sure that kids get to school and empowering and making sure kids know how to read. That's civic engagement, all the way to folks who are running for, office. We want folks in our state to really get engaged, particularly around those adaptive challenges that we just haven't been able to make a whole lot of progress on.
So adaptive challenges, because I know that's a phrase, that's a thing. So, and this is, I full disclosure, I've taken at least 2 trainings at the Kansas Leadership Center. I need to get signed up for the 3rd. So this idea of an adaptive challenge is one that there's not a clear-cut answer. If my question is, what is 2 + 2? Well, I have an answer. That answer is 4. But there's challenges where, or the math gets harder than 2 + 2, but it's still math, right? There's an answer. But then an adaptive challenge is one where the answer may not be as obvious, or even if the answer is a little more obvious, it's a little more difficult to get to. So
absolutely. Yeah. Anything that is where there are multiple interpretations, different points of view, perspectives, lived experiences, starts to yield what we refer to as an adaptive challenge. If there's an opportunity for people to see the issue differently, it's probably adaptive. If we have to learn something in order to make progress on that, it's probably adaptive. If my mother or her mother didn't solve it already, it's probably adaptive. So this idea of, if indeed we really want to make progress, not solve, right? Not solve, because some of these things took thousands of years to create. It'll take some time to undo as well. But we can make progress, and that progress ought to be measurable. And we ought to be able to see that for populations, particularly that are disadvantaged with regard to health or economic prosperity, that we're making progress in those ways.
Great. So now with you as in the helm, do you have any ideas of, for the future of KLC?
Yeah, we have lots. And one of the things that's really cool about being at KLC is I have the most fantastic engaged colleagues everybody has a vision of where we're going. And so my work really is to
I guess it makes sense from this training leadership model where it's not just a person at top makes all the decisions, but there's everyone at every rung of leadership, in air quotes, everyone at every rung.
Everyone leads. Everyone leads. They lead from their particular place in the organization. And so part of my work really is to hear from both the folks that are internal to KLC and our stakeholders to identify what the needs are. And how do we shift and adapt so that we can be most nimble and most impactful with whatever's happening in our communities, right? So some of the things that I'd love to see we're going to continue to do many of the things that we're doing. The Ed and the board made a decision some time ago that not only do we do work by bringing our partners into the building, but that we go out into communities and we work with local business and industry and nonprofits in those spaces. We'll continue to do that work. We work with elected officials. We'll continue to do that work because it's so important to get people to be able to talk across factions around these strategic or these adaptive issues. One of the areas that we haven't done a lot with yet at KLC, that's a point of passion for me, is working with youth. I think it's great to train 50-year-olds to show up differently. And we may or we may not.
I mean, as a 50-year-old, I have appreciated all the trainings that I have received there. And so I'm like, thank you for helping this old lady figure out how to think differently.
I moved different as a result of my experiences as well. If we want to change the state of Kansas, we can't do that without our youth and our collegiate level students. So our 18 to 25-year-olds, our 15 to 18-year-olds, what's available for them to help them to start seeing not just the opportunity to show up and be authentically themselves and speak from the heart to the heart, but to do so understanding kind of the challenges that come with that, both the process challenges and all the other things that come as a result of that work. So just the idea that we've got a group of Kansans that we haven't touched yet.
Right.
We have the usual suspects that come through our building that we get an opportunity to do a lot of work with. We're excited that you're one of those folks. We want to make sure that we're keeping up with the demographic changes that are happening in the state of Kansas. And so we look at our numbers. What percentage of the folks who are getting trained fit any number of demographics? And if we can identify that there are demographics where we're short or we need to shore up to ensure that those folks can exercise leadership too, we want to be able to do that as well. And so we're looking at a plethora of demographic pieces to say, what is the programming that would be necessary in order to ensure that we're tapping into this talent pool?
So would it be partnering with schools directly or like other organizations that work with youth? Like we've had Destination Innovation, some people from Destination Innovation have come on this Lunch and Learn. So would it be partnering with them or partnering with schools?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
Both. Best case scenario, we are, Julia Fabrice McBride, who served as our interim president and CEO, and now is our civic leadership officer, gets really excited when it comes to talking about building out curriculum. I'd love to see us build a curriculum that would be train the trainer, where we could train teachers and they could take that back to their districts all over the state and beyond. We could also continue to serve students that would come into our building. There's something cool about a high school student coming to our space and having an experience that adult professionals get a chance to have. And so I don't ever want to get rid of that type of field trip empowerment type of experience. So I think there are multiple ways that we could reach that particular population. We currently work really closely with several of our higher ed institutions, particularly our Regents institutions. I'd love to see us build out curriculum or relationships with our community college system in the state. That's not, we don't have really strong footholds there yet or relationships. And so I think that we are positioning ourselves to be part of a solution to lots of community concerns.
Right. Definitely. So what are the programs in general that you run? Like I know you have individual training programs, you have the KLC Path program. So what are some of the programs that people, because I'm going to drop in the webpage or the website here. So are there any programs that you would like to highlight for people if they're just now learning about KLC? Because I'll put in a plug for those of us who are watching this who may not have been to the building in Wichita. It is a beautiful building right there in downtown. So, but what kind of programs would you like to highlight?
We have a plethora of programs. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about those. Our core programs literally we call them core, but it's a path you've referenced, that there are 3 programs that can be taken in succession. The first of those is Your Leadership Edge, where we're really starting to give people competencies and skills to show up and deploy differently. Your Leadership Edge is kind of a cornerstone program. We have a brand new offering that we think is the prequel to YLE, and that is When Everyone Leads, which really walks folks through the 5 big kind of underlying foundational principles of our leadership model. Because the skills don't matter if you don't buy into the philosophy of everyone is supposed to lead from wherever they are in an organization, not positional. It's about activity. It's a leadership is a verb, not a noun, right? So we need folks to understand kind of the philosophical bent of leadership, because it's antithetical in many cases. It's not what we've been brought up to believe, and oftentimes it's not what we see. Or what we refer to. So we start with When Everyone Leads. Ultimately, we have Your Leadership Edge. There are some small group. Julia's reworking curriculum as we speak to start looking at adaptive issues in a more careful way, bringing teams together in a sense. And so there are now 4 of those that will allow folks to walk through a path. Some they're available virtual for folks who are not local or who are not in the position to travel to Wichita. And then there for those folks who are in local communities or who have access to jumping on a highway and spending a couple of days in Wichita, we do those in person here in the building as well. So we have our core programs. We have leadership development that happens through our partner organizations. So whether that's Lockheed Martin or Habitat for Humanity or any number of nonprofits, we're able to go out to their organization and work with them around their particular challenge or issue. And so we refer to those internally as kind of our custom programs. We do a whole body of civic leadership work or civic engagement work where oftentimes, whether it's a local nonprofit, a school district, a government entity of some sort is dealing with an issue and they need to bring people together around a really tough issue to have a robust community discussion. We do a lot of facilitation around those types of things and just trying to get people to engage around the idea, particularly across factions or different points of view. We're getting ready to launch a project we call Heartland, Kansas in the Heartland. We're really excited about it. It focuses on startups and entrepreneurs in rural communities. We are housed in Wichita and we invite everyone to show up in this particular space. But we are the Kansas Leadership Center with a mission to serve Kansas and beyond. And so we're really concerned about what's happening in our rural communities. If our rural communities aren't strong, then that creates problems for our urban areas as well. And so we want the entirety of our state to show up and have fantastic outcomes. And so really excited for some colleagues to start this work where we're doing some work in all 4 corners of the state, bringing together entrepreneurs with a focus, really looking for diverse entrepreneurs, people who might not have access to the ready system for or ecosystem in those particular communities. And so doing that work as well. So you name it, we're trying to figure out how we can bring people together in order to help them make progress.
Cool. That sounds awesome. I have some names of people to, oh, do you have a date for that? Someone's asked a question. Do you have a date for that? Imaginative Grit LLC put in the chat. Do you have a date for that? Maybe are you talking about the thing you were just recently, the rural Imaginative Grit LLC? Can you clarify your question? She said a lot of programs. So I'm not sure which one you were referring to. Hopefully they'll get back to me in the chat. I wanted to, while we're sort of treading water, sometimes I have asked various guests, particularly as the African American Affairs Commission, and I brought you on not because you are the CEO of Kansas Leadership Center, but because as a Black woman. So as a little girl, the 9-year-old Kaye Monk-Morgan, right? How did you get started on this path? How did you get started on this path of higher education, getting more education, getting involved? Or is it one of those things, sometimes you just do the next right thing and a door opens and you like you said, God reveals a path and you just sort of follow that path or what?
Yeah. My grandma would say favor ain't fair, right?
Okay.
Just not fair. I have been really fortunate that I came from a rather large extended family. I told somebody just the other day that was talking about public speaking. Maybe it was on Friday. I remember the first time I gave a speech, I might have been 3 years old at church for Easter, right? Jesus lives, Jesus wept, whatever. And the older you get, the more stanzas you have to remember and then eloquently share in front of your grandparents in order for you to get Easter eggs in your basket after the service. Right?
Whatever the motivation may be for the 4-year-olds, you got to do
whatever it takes. Little did I know that was foundational to an opportunity for me to be in public and to share thoughts and ideas with lots of different people. And that really has, I think, been a part of how I've ended up here. Just having a skill and sharpening the skill, continue to build that skill. I have never, kind of like you, if you'd asked me 3 years ago where I would land, I wouldn't have said here.
Yeah.
Not in a million years. I spent 20 years doing a job that I loved as an Upward Bound director, working with youth and advocating on the federal and state level for educational access. And that was maybe not what I thought I would do the rest of my life, but I hadn't really thought a whole lot about what I would do after that until after that showed up with opportunities. And people would say, you know, you're really good at this. I think you could help me with that. Can you come and do that? And that's worked really well for me. I've had to be obedient and stay in situations until God released, and also be obedient to jump into opportunities when God provided them.
Definitely. So we have clarification. The question of the date for the startup business.
Yeah. So we will start kicking those off here this summer. I have not gotten the final dossier of when we will be in which communities, but that information will be available on our website, and we will broadcast broadly so folks will know if we're going to be in a city near you.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Hopefully that will be helpful for Imaginative Grit LLC. So I just one more time, I don't know how it works, but the webpage.
Yes.
KansasLeadershipCenter.org. So keep an eye on that. Okay, we are almost out of time, and I would be remiss if I did not ask about, I have to write it down, Admiral Windwagon Smith. Yeah. I saw the news thing sort of came through my feed, and you had the whole get up, and I looked at that picture. I literally was like, did someone Photoshop Kaye Monk-Morgan into this get up? Because not being from Wichita, help us out. Talk to me about Admiral Windwagon Smith.
I am so geeked and excited that I was selected from amongst any number of potential people to serve as the ambassador for the Wichita River Festival, which is our biggest celebration of community and a huge demonstration of civic engagement when folks can come out and be with one another and their neighbors and not neighbors. And so the kind of the admiral, the host of the 9-day festival, is built on this tall tale that came out of a Disney film back in the 1960s. In 1970, a guy showed up in a red jacket, and the tale is that Admiral Windwagon Smith came to Kansas from Missouri on a boat, but that was fashioned with sails that allowed him to traverse the prairie. Yes, go with me.
You know what? It's suspension of disbelief. I'm with you. Keep going.
Absolutely. Disney, right? All things animated. And John Bell is credited with coming up with the red jacket. And over time, it has elevated where the jacket hasn't changed very much. And you get this really cool hat that is an heirloom. At least it will be at our house, because it is much to be had. I am proud to be number 49. I am the third woman and the second person of color.
Oh, no.
And to have been selected by now my peers to serve in this role is just a really great honor.
So I have to describe this get up in case people are not from Wichita. So it is a red jacket,
yes,
like an admiral jacket, like you would think, with like a high collar and a little V notch thing. But it's red. It's red like the color of your camisole right now, with an intricate white woven type thing and little wings.
Yes,
little wings.
The little things that pop up, and it's got no stripes or anything, but yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And I had the fortune, because I am not like the others. They had to make me a jacket because I couldn't work with the jackets that had come before me. And watching these women painstakingly hand stitch all of the fleur-de-lis and the little swirly cues all over the thing. It's worth Googling.
It's worth it. I put the link to the Wichita Riverfest, and it's worth Googling. And then the hat, because you were telling me the hat.
Yeah, the hat is a whole thing. So Again, my head is a little smaller than my predecessors. So and if you're willing to purchase your own hat, they will make one for you. And so I got an opportunity to watch the artisans down at Hatman Jack's make a hat for me that literally I was doing yoga yesterday, and my fair yogis were teasing me about it. So I put it on. I could do a down dog with a hat on.
And it won't come off.
It will not come off, right? I mean, it just pops right on there. But when you get it made, this is for African-American women in particular, whatever hair you have, the day you get that hat measured is the hair you're going to have to wear.
Right. Because braids take up there's just a little bit of extra space around everything.
A little bit more space. Had to take my braids out so that I could wear my hat.
There you go. And I didn't even ask you about yoga. I mean, I am I'm a yogi to this day. I teach a yoga class once a week. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have probably more education and credentials and training in yoga than almost anything else.
Wow. Yeah. I go a couple of days a week. And it keeps me from yelling at people. At least my kids say so. So it's a mind, body, mental health release.
Cheaper than therapy.
Absolutely.
Therapy is still needed, but
putting them together is really cool.
Yeah. I have finished my 500-hour yoga teacher training in Ashtanga. So.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's boss. No, I'm level 1, maybe level 2.
Well, you know what? All you need to know is down dog.
Yes, that I can get.
That's all quite a bit. Okay, we are over half an hour. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I know you're busy to come on my little show. And I wanted to leave time at the end to talk about voting. So I'll just talk about voting just ever so briefly. I left time at the end and talked about yoga. Please, I'm going to continue to talk about voting. Our history as African-American in this country, so many people have fought for our rights to vote. Pretty much that was the entire civil rights question was about in the 60s was about access to voting and equaling that level playing field. So please, if you need to get registered to vote, do register to vote. I will continue to talk about voting, make a plan to vote, and then start thinking about it now. It's April. I know you're like, November is so far away. It'll sneak up on you. So please make sure you have a plan to vote. Think about voting, talk about voting with your friends, and we will bring it up more and more. Someone did drop in the chat that they love the hat. So people have seen the hat. And awesome. That's a hit. All right. Thank you.
Not only vote in your federal elections, but your local elections. People are starting to declare candidacy. Figure out who those people are.
Yes, the municipal, the school boards and the city councils and the county commissioners, things like that. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I will see you next Monday with my next Lunch and Learn. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Stacy.